Did you some of those emotions had to be running through your mind in your response to what had happened, correct? This took place in February of 2023, by the way.
Yes. Almost a year and a half ago.
Sure.
Right when he came in, I just didn't know. It was after hours, and he had come in and asked for money, and I said no. And then he came back and asked for to use my phone, and I said okay because he had just gotten out of jail. That should have been a red flag, and I let him use it. But he was so cowardly. He waited till I turned my back and jumped on me, and and then of course I was afraid, but he kept threatening me, and all this was going through my head. What could happen. So the act happened, but then he stayed a half hour afterwards. But it was a good thing. I don't know if he was short on friends or what, but he wanted to do a Q&A with me. So, uh,
This was after the attack, correct?
right.
Yeah, I remember you
So,
telling me. Okay.
but it was a good thing because I got a good description of him, and he told me some things that I just was, adding up in my head and descriptions, looking at everything he touched. But anyway, it took away all those things I was thinking about took away from the fear, but all the time I was thinking, I'm going to go to the police, go to the hospital, go to the hospital, go to the police. I never doubted I was going to do that. And when going through court, I'm going ahead of myself, but
That's okay.
they were telling me that how odd it was that stranger rapes are very seldomly reported, and I thought, why is that? And then I thought, well, well, of course, who would you say did it if you don't know who it was? And that, when people know they're rapists, that's even rarer because who's going to believe you if it's somebody you know?
Right.
But I tell people, you have to go. You have to go to the police. You have to go to the hospital, because otherwise these little creeps are going to get away with it again and again and again. So I never hesitated to go. I wouldn't even think of it. I wouldn't tell anybody not to go. So,
Sure. Yeah, I mean it's amazing because I'd been told, and correct me if I'm wrong, when they were doing the vetting the jurors, that whole process that happens before the trial, that the many that were excused were either victims of a sexual assault themselves or knew somebody close to them, and in just about all those cases, well, it was either they didn't come forward or they did, and there was very little response from the local authorities, and that
yeah,
was not. I mean, I'm not talking about Waukesha, just wherever these people live in Milwaukee or Waukesha County or wherever, wherever the pool was, that
right.
they weren't really satisfied with the response or the support. But that was not the case with you in terms of how the police responded here in Waukesha, right?
All right. The police were great. The police, um, Captain
Dan
Bauman,
Bauman.
yeah, and the hospital, Waukesha Memorial, Freighter, the police really took care of me. The detectives, they were amazing. I mean, they didn't hesitate, and I just gave them the description. Everything was so consistent. They stayed with me. This happened at 7 o'clock at night. They stayed with me till 3 o'clock in the
Wow.
morning. They came with pictures at 6 o'clock in the morning. They caught him by 10 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So in Milwaukee,
Sure.
yeah. So it ran so smoothly.
And didn't
But
he have like the same shirt on or something like that, or same jacket that he had when
well,
he assaulted you or something like that? That was just a dead giveaway.
what happened was he was arrested in January with this outfit on. And then when you get arrested, they take the clothes and you stay in jail. They give you the clothes back. When he came in my shop, it was a day before he did this. He got out of jail. He had those clothes on.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he denied it because he took the shirt off when they caught him. He had the shirt on underneath that. He threw that shirt
That's
away.
yeah. Okay.
So, but the policewoman that pulled him off the bus in January had a video of him getting off the
Okay.
bus in that outfit.
Wow.
So, he pretty much hung himself.
Well, that was the other thing, and I know this conversation will continue, and that's when we have more time to talk about it, is that they had also found in a bag that he had or a backpack, there was a list. and it was like 20 categories of women that he was looking to assault sexually.
Yes. Hmm.
And so we're going to talk more about that, as well as we are going to be acting locally, thinking globally, and the Carol Minute. And I also, in the next, we'll also be announcing I have another special guest, another woman of courage like Stephanie and like Alicia, who will be joining me next week. And so this is the first leg in her vindication tour, the first media outlet that will be talking to her. So looking forward to making that special announcement here on This Week in Waukesha on WAUK, 540 AM, 101.1 FM. We are taking your calls on the Civic Media app. So if you don't have it downloaded already, it's super easy. You can take it anywhere you go. And This Week in Waukesha continues. It You're listening to This Week in Waukesha on WAUK, 101.1 FM, 540 AM, and the Civic Media app. And if you're traveling, like, say, down to Chicagoland or even northern Indiana, you tune into 540 AM. It has such a strong reception. It follows you just about everywhere. If you're in Waukesha, listen to 101.1 FM because the sound is so much clearer. And it's lovely. But your best case scenario is the Civic Media app, because then you don't need to be in your car. You don't need to. I know most of us don't have radios in our kitchens anymore or living rooms. And download the Civic Media app. And we are taking your calls from the app. And one thing I forgot to mention, too, is obviously this is very sensitive material, talking about what Stephanie had endured. And so if you do have small children in the room or whoever, this is just kind of a precaution. But I think we're kind of past talking about the actual event, right? We're talking more about how you handled it and how you plan on being an advocate for other victims.
Yes.
And and then you just talk closer to the mic. Sorry. So project that loud, lovely voice of yours. So, but Trevor, but real quick, I want to get into acting locally, thinking globally. So if I seem kind of punch drunk, and I'm not drunk, but it may seem like it, the last 2 nights, starting at like 10 o'clock, I was a virtual host for a trade event in Chennai, India, 10 and a half hours ahead of us, called Shrimp Summit 2024. It is the second annual offering of the Center for Responsible Seafood, TCRS, whose mission is to promote sustainable seafood practices throughout the world. And for a number of reasons, there's an abundance of seafood that can make a profound difference for a lot of communities around the world. And even here locally, it's a great way to develop local economies. And now that we have Lake Michigan water in Waukesha, I would love to see some entrepreneurs or other people with experience in fisheries explore aquaculture opportunities here. Again, and we know fish and seafood is a fantastic source, a healthy, probably the healthiest of proteins, if you will, among the flesh proteins. And it's a wonderful mission worldwide. And it was a lot of fun because I was connecting with, there are like over 500 delegates, and about just over 300 were virtual, which again, for this niche kind of offering for a fairly young trade organization. That's a very impressive turnout. So I got to connect with a lot of passionate professionals, people that are generations old, like in artisanal and aquaculture fisheries. And the majority of the seafood and shrimp comes from Asia. And so these are gigantic. These are big economies in these countries, and they're very basic to these economies. But again, here in the U.S., regionally and locally, I think we just barely scratched the surface when it comes to aquaculture. When I used to run restaurants in Chicago, we would get catfish and rainbow trout, beautiful fish, delicious fish that was farm raised in Idaho. And so I encourage people to learn more about aquaculture. It used to have kind of a bad name, but they've improved their practices so much in terms of sustainability that it really is a great option. And again, now that we're using Great Lakes water that we're cleaning and we're sending it back cleaner than we got it, and with some of the empty warehouse space we have, it would be neat to see Waukesha become part of a global seafood movement where we're basically making a healthier planet with healthier humans. So that is my opening segment of acting globally, thinking locally, or excuse me, acting locally, thinking globally. But hey, really both things. And when I was working, and thanks for the claps, Maxie. But when I was working in Dublin, Ireland, my ancestral homeland, I would tell people that I live in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and they would say, "Oh yeah, well Les Paul, that's so cool. Can you bring me something back that's a Les Paul, like a postcard or some little knickknack?" And I was glad to do it. And I think that's another opportunity with the Les Paul heritage here to really put Waukesha on the world map. One of my visions is to have a Guitar Town festival akin to the Willie Clancy Festival in my grandmother's hometown in Ireland that draws people from all over the world that are passionate about traditional Irish music. I believe we could have a Guitar Town, Les Paul Guitar Town Festival here in Waukesha that would draw people from all over the world that are passionate about different genres of guitar playing. And, not just rock and roll. And I love rock and roll, but there's classical, there's all different, jazz, all different blues, of course, all different types of guitar genres. And we could really have some fun with that too. And I'm gaining some interest slowly but surely, but that's kind of my little pipe dream for Waukesha. So, but returning to my guest and Alicia Halbenslavin, we've only given you a chance to talk once, but you were obviously you were the downtown alder when this happened. Like, how did you react when you first heard the news about Stephanie?
I mean, I think the first reaction anyone would have is shock. Right, downtown is a relatively safe place, right? I walk around downtown without thinking a second thought. I've lived in a variety of places, and I don't think I've ever felt safer than when I have lived in Waukesha. So to have something, and not just something that was so insane, right? But that it was random too, right? That it was a stranger, that it wasn't somebody that someone knew. That doesn't make it, better or worse. It seems so shocking. Um, and so yeah, I was definitely shocked. But then I was I don't want to say happy, but I was encouraged by the fact that we did apprehend him so quickly. By the time that I had heard about it, because it did happen, in the evening, by the time I had heard about it, they had already apprehended this gentleman. So, thankfully, there was such a great police response, and I was encouraged to know that the police that I know here in Waukesha acted exactly the way that I would expect them to.
They kicked butt.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that our police department does such a great job on so many levels, and this is just further evidence of their capabilities and how great they can be.
Well said. Well said. Thanks for that, Alicia. And how are we doing on time here, Max? Okay, so 2 minutes. So we started, talking about like what's next. And by the way, when I met with Stephanie at her shop, where it all happened, and she was very unfair. I mean, I shouldn't say, but she does not fear anything or anyone. She's just formidable. Is that a good way to describe you? Or even fearless, tenacious, as Johnny says. Yeah,
Tenacious.
tenacious D.
Well, I can't allow that. I can't let that person take over my life. I'm not going to allow it.
Sure. And you've also you in your public about this. You also sought the help that you need in terms of the healing correct? Is that safe to say?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
So,
definitely. Mhm.
and that's another people, whether they go to the authorities or not, they keep this inside,
Mhm.
and
Well,
that's got a damaging effect, I would think.
and excuse me for
No,
interrupting, but I didn't in the beginning go for therapy, and my stepmom works for me at my shop, and after about a month, she said, maybe you should go for some therapy, and I said, for what? And she said, well, you have a little anger. I said, what do you mean by that? Anyway, so I did seek some help, and I have a great therapist. She's great. So after I won the case, I went back to her and I said, "I'm fixed. I don't need to see you anymore. I feel great." And she said, "I don't know. I think you need more help. Maybe not even for this. You just need help." And but I told her, "Well, at least you can take your hand off the doorknob and take your running shoes off." And uh, but I'm going to keep going to see her because this might be an ongoing thing that I
that's
need help, and
wonderful.
I will. But
Okay.
yeah.
We're going to continue this conversation with
Mhm.
Stephanie Olson, including especially the healing process here in
Yes.
This Week in Waukesha. And
Mm.
we're taking your calls on the Civic Media app. So download it if you haven't already. Do you remember this song, Stephanie? Put those phones on.
I can tell my sister about the flowers in her eyes on the road to Shambhala. I can tell my brother.
So I'm the youngest in a big family, so I grew up with older brothers and sisters that exposed me to so much great music from the 50s and 60s. And this is Three Dog Night with Shambhala. So great band on this beautiful day. And I forgot to mention, when Les Paul, when I bring him on that second song with Mary Ford, the world is waiting for the sun to rise. And then the sun came out right towards the end there. It's hid back in the clouds, but I'm sure, I've been told anyway, that lazy saint in the sky will be making its way out soon. It's going to be a beautiful day. So, and it's a beautiful day already because I've got two fantastic women here in studio in the office of former Alderman Don Browne, along with one of my closest advisors and dearest friends, Johnny Watermelon. And Mary Jane Sanchez won't be joining us today because she's got like a girls doing some glamping up at the family cottage up north there near the rapids. But she said she might be calling in from the Civic Media app, so we'll be looking for Janie. Very good friend with both here, and Johnny's also great friends with Stephanie, and that's why I invited Johnny to come along. Johnny's really been one of the great ambassadors for WAUK and Civic Media in Waukesha, and really delighted to have him here, and maybe even he's contributed a little bit, but we might have to give him a mic and a set of head. He's got the headphones already, so he knows I'm not talking any smack about him. So, and again, can't forget the mighty Max on the board, Max Martinson here, WAUK. We're really delighted to have him and his experience for his as a young college student, and very passionate about the work. So we're glad you're here, Max.
Experience is a little debatable. I'm in the TV field rather than the radio field.
It's probably a lot easier for you to to figure this out.
This is much easier. Yeah. Yes.
I have a client that I have to figure HubSpot out, and I know WordPress pretty well. Like, an Egypt like me can figure out how to do graphic arts on WordPress, and I shouldn't be anywhere near graphic art, but I mean dropping photos. But HubSpot's not as intuitive. It's designed by CRM programmers, and so there's a bit more to learn. And so, I admire people like you that know your way around a studio. So,
if you ever get the chance, you should check out our Ops Day project that we did. We had some insanely cool graphics for that project.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Show me that path. Hey, and speaking of path, all my shows sit on a podcast page on WAUK Radio, so you can catch previous shows. You can catch last week's show that had Alicia's colleague, Smokin' Joe Piper, 4th District Alderman. And we had retired policeman and writer and podcast host himself, Daniel O'Connell, who's become a good friend. And then we also had congressional candidate for the Democratic primary in the 5th District, Ben Steinhoff. And so that's a great one to catch if you haven't already. We had a punk rock band, high schoolers called the Nunchucks 2 weeks prior to that. And when Dan came on a week later, and it was great to hear this from a Milwaukee police officer that he loves punk rock, and he actually played some of the Nunchuck songs and learned about them and was rather impressed. So that's neat how we, the mission here on This Week in Waukesha, as it is with Civic Media, is to build more connected communities at a local level. And we learn that there's so much more that unites us. So, and now back with Stephanie, one of the big heroes here in Waukesha, my hero, and the way that she'd overcome a really tragic situation and literally turned it on its head, bringing a victim to justice where this victim will be going away for the next 50 years. And I mentioned earlier that they found a list, and it was a list of categories, like I guess it was like maybe 20 different types of women he planned on assaulting. Can you speak to that, Stephanie?
Yes, it was a surprise to me. They brought out at the trial a list, and they put it on a big screen of women. He didn't put names, but there are women and different businesses that he was going to go get, and I can't say what he called it, but they were women that he was going to go get and do something to, and it was so shocking. And just looking at the expressions of the jury and everybody else in there, and I was told not to have an expression, just look straight ahead. And I couldn't. couldn't help
But
myself.
he certainly did us a favor. He basically wrote his own ticket to
Oh,
a
yes.
long journey in the behind bars.
Yeah, like I
I mean
said,
that.
yeah, like I said, it wasn't difficult. He wasn't. The jury wasn't out
Sure.
very long.
Well, we did mention there was a defense strategy. I think they were trying to pose you as somebody, maybe not an upright sit. Or tell me about that. What the defense strategy was, if you're comfortable talking about it in the
Oh
cross
yeah.
examination.
Oh yes. They told me ahead of time that this defense attorney was going to try to intimidate me and bring up my past, and um, you know, they told me ahead of time that this guy was really tough, and he went after the victim, and he was so not intimidating. He never got up from the table. I think I
You
intimidated him
boxed him.
more. Yeah.
Love it.
And he said, "I don't want to intimidate. I mean, I don't want to embarrass you." And I said, "You won't." And he asked me my age. I'm like, "Yeah, 69 and a half." And he asked me a question. I was told yes or no, yes or no. Well, then I had to it was not a yes or no question.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was not intimidating, but he didn't have much to work
But
with.
it's fair to say that other women or other victims, be they male or female, could be intimidated on the stand like that when they start talking about your past or whatever. I mean, because we all have a past.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I think, and I thought, what does this have to do with anything? But, I just said, he asked me a question about my past and I was honest. And so I don't know what that had to do with anything. But
Right.
when they asked him, he
Yeah.
had, 14 convictions
Yeah.
um, and he's
At age 20
25.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, 25. And 4 of them were in prison. They had already been
I mean,
arrested.
that's like one per year since becoming a tween or since.
Right. Yeah.
So, but hey, we've got Mary Jane Sanchez on the way. She was at the cabin. There were some issues with the Wi-Fi, but there's no cell, but she figured out a way. Janie, are you there? Hello, Janie. Can you hear me?
Thing.
There
Yes,
you
I
are.
can.
Speak up. Speak up, child.
Well, well, I'm sitting in the far corner of the cabin because I barely have a signal, but I was able to get through. So yay!
That's great. Mary Jane's a very good friend of Stephanie Olson's, as a good friend of many of us here in Waukesha. And
Well, I have to say that right now, 2 of my heroes, both you and Stephanie, are together there, and
well,
to
thank you.
me, you both really are a big part of the community in Waukesha, as I am, because we love our city.
Sure.
And Stephanie, just a shout out to you. I'm so glad that you're coming forward to let the community know about your experience, and that we all need to, push and move together to make changes or stand up for our rights within the city.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for being on the show today. So, but yes, I'm up in Big Flats, Wisconsin, and my father built a cabin up here in the
Nice.
middle to late 70s, and so I have a girls' weekend every year. So I've got a couple of friends up here today.
Sounds good. Yeah, you have some more friends here too. Alicia Halbin-Slavin, 11th District Alder, and Johnny Watermelon, nicest guy in town.
Oh, wonderful! We'll just have to have a big Waukesha party up here.
Yeah,
Good
I was going
morning
to say.
you all.
So, well, we appreciate the call. And Mary Jane, you'll appreciate this. I've been getting a lot of TikToks about boxing. I like boxing as a kid. I don't care for MMA or some of that other stuff. I think it's barbaric, but boxing, the sweet science, there is a strategy to it. And I came across this quote from George Foreman, a heavyweight champion. In fact, whether you like boxing or not, you got to see the movie When We Were Kings. And it was a story of that iconic fight between Ali and Foreman in Zaire in what was once the Belgian Congo. It was arguably one of the greatest upsets in sports. But anyway, George Foreman says, when I was a boxer in the 1970s, I was punched in the face by Joe Frazier, knocked out by Muhammad Ali, and knocked down a few times by Ron Lyle before I got up and won. All the fights had one thing in common. When they were over, I could not remember the pain. I forgot about my weak knees, the cuts, the blood in my eyes. Without the films of my fights, I would have completely taken them out of my mind. It's the same thing when you're going through tough times. Don't let pain and disappointment lodge inside. And I saw this like the day after I met you, Stephanie, at your store, and I was like, this is Stephanie Olson here to a T.
Mm-hmm.
You're like George Foreman. of
Thanks.
alteration.
Oh, thank you.
That's why I love her because she's so feisty.
Yeah. So I think of another movie called Sleepers, which was about young boys that were assaulted in a juvenile prison.
I've seen that
And
movie.
they came back, and it was based on the Count of Monte Cristo, and they came back and avenged each one of those prison guards that had attacked them. And one of the ways was they went after a guy that was thick with the mayor's office or something like that, and played by I think it was Justin Patrick, or anyway, he's given this policeman, this internal affairs guy, this whole dossier on this because this guy became a cop after leaving the juvenile prison, and the policeman says to Justin Patrick, he says, "Hey, do me a favor. If I ever piss you off, let me know. Give me a chance to apologize." And that's kind of how I am with Stephanie. You know, if I ever upset you, give me a chance to. You don't mess with Stephanie Olson. That you did us all a favor, and,
That's
and
right.
I know other people said this. You did the community a favor by putting this guy away, by standing up and being
Yes,
courageous.
she has.
And when
Thank
most
you.
people would not blame you for not coming forward, given how brutal that circumstance was.
Oh, thank you.
So
And
thank you.
well said, Don. Very well said.
Thank you, Janie. Well, we're really glad you called. And I guess, Janie, while you're on the line, I can make this big announcement. Another woman of courage, of great courage, another woman of Waukesha, much of the same ilk as Stephanie Olson, is my guest on next week's show. And we're proud that This Week in Waukesha will be the first media outlet anywhere to interview this woman in her first leg of the Vindication Tour. And I'm talking about former alder, my former colleague on the city council, and former county legislator, Kathleen Cummings, who went through a vicious criminal trial, was arrested for election fraud and a lot of these. It was just a vicious couple of years, and
30 months. I think she said 30 months.
30
that
months,
She went through all of that.
and
I
over
think that's what the
$80,000 in
amount of
legal
time is.
fees and public humiliation and embarrassment. And she came out on top recently, less than a month ago. She was acquitted of all charges, a major victory. And as this relates to Stephanie, and we were talking about this, is Kathleen's attorney had told her, because she kept getting bullied by the prosecution to take a lower plea or to take a deal. And it seemed like in each offer there was she had to commit to never running for office again, which we learned later could be unconstitutional. But more to the point was that her attorney told her that of all the criminal trials, and this was a criminal trial in the United States, of the thousands of them, it's like 3% end up in an acquittal. So the odds are very much against her. And one of the reasons for that is because a majority of these cases try to get plead out. These prosecutors' office, these DA's office, they want to kind of move the docket, get all that inventory off, and they make deals. And so on the opposite side, or at least in a different scenario for Stephanie and for victims of sexual assault, there is a big stack of these criminal, and a lot of times they just try to move the wheels of justice in a way that maybe real justice isn't executed. Go ahead, Stephanie.
No, right. But my team, the DA's office, they were relentless. They were not going to give them any leeway. They were not going to negotiate, period. Yeah. And they knew they had a slam dunk. When I doubted it, and
Sure.
I just didn't know because I had no proof. I thought I had no proof, no
Sure.
cameras. I mean, if I could win this case, then people that have cameras, I mean, people should just go for help. They have to. I mean,
Yeah.
if I could, I had no proof. I thought I had no proof, and
Sure.
and I won. So you have to go for help.
Yeah.
Can I make a quick point on that?
Sure.
One of the things I like to bring to people's attention about Waukesha is that we do have a system of cameras, right? I have a camera on my doorbell, and you can actually register that with the city on the city's website, so that if something
Thank you
does
for sharing
happen,
that, Alicia. Yeah.
we can
so
get that evidence.
That's good. So let's put a pin in that. And I want to hear more from Alicia Helbenslaven about that, as well as the rest of what was going on with Stephanie's trial, as This Week in Waukesha continues, plus more local news, including some small business bullying in the halls of Shop.
Ariana, we all want to say thank you to you for being so strong and so wonderful. And you've been singing a lot for us, so I think we in Britain want to sing for you. This is called Don't Look Back in Anger, and this is from us to you. Let's go, everyone.
Slip inside the eye of your mind. Don't you know you might find a better place to play? You said that you'd never been, but all the things that you've seen will slowly fade away. So I start a revolution from my bed. 'Cause you said the brains I have went to my head. Step outside, the summertime's in blue. Stand up beside the fireplace, but take that look from off your face. 'Cause you ain't ever gonna burn my heart out. Oh, 1, 2, 3, and go. Sally can wait. She knows it's too late as we're walking on by.
You're listening to This Week in Waukesha on WAUK with your host, Downtown Donnie Brown, here in the office of former Alderman Don Paul Browne in the WAUK studios. And that was Coldplay, a live performance of, what was the name of the song again, Maxie?
Don't Look Back in Anger.
Don't Look Back in Anger.
Originally by Oasis.
And it was, oh, yeah, that's right. It was, and I think one of the Oasis brothers, one of the Gallaghers, was on the stage there singing with Coldplay, but it was Ariana Grande, around that time had given a concert in the UK where I guess an explosion took place or a shooting or just a violent act, and that had traumatized her and filled her with guilt, even though she was, clearly not responsible. But they brought her back in this concert. She was on the stage with them. They played that song as a tribute, and very similar to the theme of what was experienced here in downtown Waukesha in February of 2023, and then the recent result. You could say the vindication, the justice for Stephanie Olson, and for a lot of us, especially if we've known somebody that was victimized or were victimized ourselves. And the sun's fighting its way back out. So great stuff. But we were talking, and Alicia made an excellent point about cameras everywhere. And that's why I asked Mary Jane. Go ahead, continue, Alicia.
Yeah, during the break, Stephanie was talking about how there really were cameras all over downtown, and that kind of helped with the case. Another unfortunate incident that happened downtown
With the Christmas parade, yep.
Yeah,
That the assailant was caught.
Yeah, we knew exactly what his movements were because so many people do have those cameras, and I know that some people might say, "Oh, we live in a surveillance state," but honestly, for me, it's nice, even if it's just a package arriving at home on how I know, okay, it's there. But what it can be helpful for is when there is something really unfortunate that happens, we have clear evidence of what's going on, where that person was, what they did, and we can use that to help out the DA's office and make sure that they have a solid case.
Sure. And ask Mary Jane to stay on the phone, because when I was in the council, I served on the IT board with Mary Jane. She was a citizen member of the IT board and had some great, and when there was, I remember IT Director Chris Pofall talked about how there are cameras throughout the city set up by the IT department that give them a great view of what's going on here. Mary Jane? Did I lose her? I see her name on the board here. But there was that gas station there on White Rock and that crazy intersection there, White Rock and 18. The gas station, the owner of that gas station was murdered. And same thing, using those cameras, they were able to follow that guy in his car, the assailant, and were able to catch him. And I think, too, because he didn't know his way around Waukesha, it was somebody from out of town, that made it easier to catch them. But having that video surveillance was a huge factor. And
That's a flock camera, right?
Yeah, so we have a variety of different types of cameras, including the flock cameras, which have been instrumental in helping to locate stolen vehicles as well. So
my van was stolen, in December on the side of my building.
Oh,
And the camera watched it go away.
sure.
But they caught it. They found it in Menominee Falls by using the flock camera.
Right.
That's
Yeah, we're
nice. Yep.
seeing.
Hmm.
What's the flock camera? Yeah.
Pardon me?
So I can speak to that a little bit. Yeah. So
Okay.
the flock cameras, they're specifically meant to identify license plates of, okay, this particular vehicle was involved in a crime or it was stolen. And then they are looking specifically for the license plate. So it's not that they're just tracking everyone's movements all the time. That's definitely not the purpose. It is, we have a license plate number. We know this is what happened with that vehicle. And this is what we're trying to do to find them. So it's not the police just accessing anyone's license plate for any reason. They have to have a specific reason to track that vehicle.
Mhm.
And can be very helpful, obviously.
Yeah.
Sure. And I think, again, there's that issue of, is it too much infringement on your personal freedoms versus are we feeling safer now that we have, you hate to say big brother, but knowing that we've got that extra coverage,
Yeah.
especially as small business owners. And I was telling Stephanie's been in business here for over 40 years in downtown Waukesha. And that should really be the theme of, that's why we should have Stephanie on this, to celebrate someone that's been a small business owner for that long, has survived the test of time and continues to thrive. And it's beneficial for people like you, for so many of us in our small business community. I mean, that certainly makes you feel more, I hate to say safe, but more assured that we can. And if people know this too, then maybe they're not as inclined to commit these types of atrocities or crimes.
Right. And I've been very lucky that I've had such a great business. I mean, from day one, I was on Grandin College in 1983. That's when I opened up.
Oh, wow.
And then I bought my building 30 years ago. And it's been great ever since. Yeah.
Sure.
I've
sure.
never had a slow time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's, again, in your type of, you could say it's kind of a niche business,
Hmm.
and people are more inclined to buy a new pair of pants instead of getting it altered or fixed. But when there's still a market out there for that. I think that's terrific.
Right. Hmm.
So fantastic.
Hmm.
Well, we've got another great hour of this week in Waukesha on this beautiful Saturday morning. And Stephanie will stay with us. Alicia Halbenslavin will stay with us. We'll talk about some downtown business news, including some bullying among local businesses that I find rather distasteful. And we want to do a deeper dive into that. Plus, Jane Matnier will be calling in from the Waukesha Farmers Market at the beginning of this next hour and giving us an update. And then she'll be calling back again at the second point. And then we're going to do the Carol Minute, honoring one of their stars who received national recognition for her three-point shooting, and so much more here on This Week in Waukesha on this beautiful Saturday morning. June, June 29th, 2024. If it's 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, it's still time for This Week in Waukesha, hour number 2. I'm your host, Downtown Donnie Browne, coming to you live and local from the office of former Alderman Don Paul Browne here in the WAUK studios in downtown, right around the corner from Theodora Yaumans Park, where we are proud to honor our suffragette heritage here in the Shaw. I'm joined by the mighty Max Martinson on the board, and my two guests embody that suffragette spirit that Theodora Yaumans unleashed here in Waukesha more than 100 years ago. And speaking of other great suffragettes and women, we have the immortal Jane Matnier at the Waukesha Farmers Market tending the booth for us this morning. Jane, can you hear us?
Good morning, Don. It has finally stopped raining down here at the Waukesha Farmers Market, and it is going to be a fantastic day. If you need fresh vegetables, if you are looking for fresh flowers, you can get fresh bread. If you're looking for a snack, there's all kinds of food you can try out. This is a wonderful, wonderful farmers market. If you've never been down here, we're right along the river in downtown Waukesha. We will be here until noon today. It's going to be a little warm today. So if you're thinking about coming out, you may want to come out a little bit early and avoid the hot, hot heat. If you stop by the Civic Media booth, not only can you register to win this fantastic bicycle, but we have candy for the kids. We have milk bones for your furry kids. We would love to see you stop by and say hello and come and fill up everything you are looking for. You can even get your knives sharpened. And as I always say, there is a maple and bacon scone
That's right.
that you absolutely have to try out.
Those are
could potentially,
insane.
but probably won't change the course of your entire life. From the Waukesha Farmers Market for WAUK, this is Jane Matnier on Civic Media. Back to you, Don.
Thank you so much, Jane. And yes, you must catch Matnier on air Monday through Fridays, 10 to 12, Jane and Greg Bach. And Jane, one of the legends of the Civic Media family, has been in radio has had quite a prosperous career, and we're so grateful to have her here at WAUK. That show is a fun show, and it talks about all things Wisconsin, politics, news, sports, culture, and Greg's a ride. Greg and Jane make a great team with that show, and I love Jane's Matnier. I thought she should buy the rights to that because I had a friend. He's a professional musher, Hugh Neff. He's finished in the top 25 in the Iditarod for many years. He won the Yukon Trail at one point in his career, and he's competed in other tournaments. But he grew up in Chicagoland, and he used to take me to matinees, to movies in the daytime in the summer, because Hugh's more of a cold weather guy. And he said, and I was amazed at how crowded it was at these movie theaters during the day when you got this beautiful sunshine outside. But Hugh said a lot of the lower income families go to the matinees because it's a couple bucks. It's a lot less to get in, but it's air conditioned, and a lot of them live in homes that aren't multi-unit homes that aren't air conditioned. And so I always thought Matnier, that'd be a great name for a group of people, for a whole a cult following so Jane should buy the rights to her surname and her show's kind of a matinee. It's that mid-morning or it breaks into the early day following Pat Kreitlow and Earl Ingram, two other quality shows, Up North News and the Earl Ingram Show. So it's a really great. It's great to have the Civic Media dial on your app or on your radio at work or at home in the mornings. And so it's always great having Jane at the farmers market. So that's her second leg running the booth there, and grateful for all that she does. So especially, with Johnny used to have to run the farmers market all the time, and the poor guy, we've been wearing him out. So we're glad to have him in studio here with his good friend, Stephanie Olson, and with 11th District Alder Alicia Halben-Slavin, who I know we have to let go early. Where are you going to today, Alicia?
I am kicking off a canvas.
Nice.
It's election season.
It sure is. It sure is. So, and that reminds me, if there's candidates that you want to hear from for different offices, let me know. We'd love to have them on the show, as long as you understand that we also have to invite their opponents out of fairness. And so, let us know if there's someone you'd like to have on that's running for local office in this very exciting campaign season. So, but I'm very excited to have Stephanie Olson on and Alicia together, two stalwarts in downtown Waukesha. And Stephanie was here to talk about this traumatic experience and to be a champion for victims' rights, and to let women and any victim of sexual assault really encourage them to have to come forward and help others, and know that you're not alone. That's fair to say, right? And you even offered too that if someone you knew, or if they knew you, or even if they didn't, and especially here in Waukesha, if something like that were to happen to them, they could call you. You would drive them to the hospital, I think is what you said, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So,
It doesn't matter what time, day, what if I'm in town, which I normally am, just call me if they're afraid or have doubt, just call me and I'll direct them or take them whatever they need, go to the police, the hospital, whatever they want to do. I will definitely take them.
sure. And what's amazing to me was that you've been here over 40 years, and you remember a time, especially like in the 80s when you started, when downtown didn't feel so safe as it does now. Is that fair to say?
Well, it was safe when I first got here, but just the last couple years, I don't know what's happened, but I mean, I felt safer earlier when I
Really?
first got here. Yeah.
Okay. Because I wasn't living here then, but I knew that a lot of bands like the Bodines, other musicians that came out of Waukesha could get some really cheap studio space because there were a lot of closures in downtown, a lot of boarded up buildings
Hmm.
where they could go and like where what's it called now, Pilots or co-pilot, where Roots used to be, or Mountaintop Coffee. I Yeah, I'd heard that that's where the Bodines had cut like many of their great albums was right there on Main Street. And so I
Hmm.
I just assumed knowing, because I think back then it was also Brookfield Square that really hurt downtown Waukesha.
Well, Main Street, that's a whole different story than the side streets. I'm on a
Right.
side street, and I don't think there's enough coverage. Again, like I said, the police were perfect. They were great with me, but I don't think there's enough coverage on the side streets.
Mm,
I mean, Main Street, there's not a lot of crime going on because it's
right.
very busy.
But a lot of those side streets feel very dark at night.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
So,
And I'm one of the very few that are there after dark, and I work late. That's my own choice. I work late at night
sure,
when
sure.
my lights are on. But the side streets need more coverage, I believe. And the main street, yeah, that's safe. I always feel safe on Main Street.
Okay.
Hmm.
Thank you for that. And speaking of Main Street, I wanted to share some good news and then also discuss some unfortunate news. And I learned this from the Freeman yesterday that the city of Waukesha has received funds from a 2024 raise, all caps raise, grant worth over $1 million to design pedestrian and bicycle bridges. Alicia, can you speak to that?
Yeah, one of the things that I think will actually help keep Waukesha safe and make Waukesha safer is to have more people walking around or on bicycles. Because the more kind of foot traffic that there is, the less likely people will feel like they can get away with something. I think that says something about side streets. So I love the idea that we're going to be encouraging more pedestrians and bike traffic.
Sure.
If I never had to drive, I would be perfectly happy. I walked here to get here
Yeah.
today because I only live 2 blocks away, and I'll be walking over to my next appointment and then walking home because if I don't need a car, I don't want to use one.
It
So I love this idea.
One of the first people I thought of when I read this, in addition to a lot of my bicycle friends, was longtime Waukesha denizen and legendary cross country coach at Waukesha North High School, Jamie Mosley, whose son Noah played baseball with my son Evan. I think it was like in seventh grade, youth baseball. And when I was still on the council, and Jamie had said that he thought it'd be great to have more pedestrian bridges in Waukesha, especially for those runners, that they'd have some nice. So I'm sure he's smiling ear to ear. And I remember there were people in my when I was District 1 was my district before that unspeakable outrage in 2021. uh, that there were people that were living closer to what is still District 1 over on Springdale that they like to ride their bikes a lot, but you're surrounded by major roads everywhere, and it would be neat to have a clear path for bicyclists to, especially to get to our lovely downtown here in different parts of the city.
Well, right. When you live, half a mile away from somewhere, but you have to cross two major highways or something to get there. It doesn't feel like it's half a mile anymore. So to have these things that are connecting communities, making them more walkable, more bicycle friendly, takes cars off the road, creates less of a parking issue that I get to hear about. So I think that, yeah, if we're able to connect communities and really make those, um, actually community focused, neighborhood focused, that's the best way to go about things.
Agreed, agreed. And speaking of connectivity, the unfortunate news is we caught this on social media. My wife did actually about a certain downtown Waukesha business, and Stephanie, your friend's the owner, who decided to move her store to Burlington because of some bullying she was experiencing from another downtown neighbor. And I won't reveal that name because I like shopping there, and it's unfortunate. I'm kind of just dealing with it, but uh, can you share some more specifics on that, Stephanie or Alicia, that as far as what you know?
Actually, I went to the ladies' shop yesterday, as a matter of fact, and she told me she was moving, and I was really surprised. And she told me the reason that she had been bullied by another shop owner right downtown on the same street. And I thought that's so unfortunate because we should all be supporting each other, and
Even if you're direct competitors.
right, yeah. And I mean, I have competition, but I'm not going to bash her.
You always want your competition to do well, believe it or
Yeah,
not, because it
right.
brings more people to downtown. It brings more
Ex-
people to your business district if you're not
yeah.
downtown.
Exactly. And no, it was just such a shame. And I mean, she has to travel to open her business someplace else.
Does she live
And
in Waukesha?
yes, she does.
Yeah,
So
that's even
she's got to
more.
commute to Burlington.
Yeah,
And
she should send her the gas bill for the
yeah,
the commute.
exactly. And it's one store downtown that's causing her to leave, and
And
it's
one store that should know better, given the
uh,
store owner's involvement in downtown Waukesha with Friday Night Live and with the Downtown Business
exactly.
Association. And
Yeah.
we're going to continue this conversation as well as talk about the Carol Minute um, and so much more local news here on This Week in Waukesha with my guest, Stephanie Olson, and Alder Alicia Halbensleben, and my good friend, Johnny Watermelon. And we're taking your calls on the Civic Media app on this beautiful Saturday morning, June 29th.
Bully, does somebody hurt you? Make you feel small? You take it out on me, 'cause it makes you feel tall. But just head it on. If you looked in my eyes, you'd see. Hey, bully, you're a lot like me.
Tired to deceive you. We can't pretend there's nothing wrong. Who'll be first to say it? That the thrill is gone.
And we'll never get it back. Hey, you're listening to This Week in Waukesha with your host, Downtown Donnie Brown, coming to you live and local from the office of former Alderman Don Paul Browne. And you're listening to one of my favorite bands, the Waterboys, live in, is it Glastonbury or Gastonbury? It's like one of the great music festivals that takes place in the UK. And it was The Thrill Is Gone and The Healing Has Begun. a cover of the great Van Morrison song. And if you ever get a chance to listen that, it's from an album called The Live Adventures of the Waterboys. And it was from that Glastonbury Festival. That's on my bucket list, by the way. There's always great uh, bands that they have playing there in the summer. So, but I thought the healing has begun, and it certainly has with our good friend, Stephanie Olson, who's overcome so much, but has also fought back figuratively in a way that a violent criminal was brought to justice and is spending what is very believably the rest of his life in jail, at least the next 50 years. And so we can't thank you enough for that. But we are talking about some other victimization going on, a local business owner that has to leave the city because of bullying she received from another business neighbor, which I think is unconscionable. But Stephanie, you were saying when you talked to her that she was also dealing with a landlord that was very non-responsive.
Right. She said she can't get a hold of him or them. Things go wrong with the building. She's called. They don't return the call.
It's right there on Main Street. It's the same building as Old Chocolat.
Yes.
She's next door. It's the same building.
Mhm.
And I have no problem calling these people out because that's also unconscionable. You're in downtown Waukesha, and our downtown is so important to our way of life here. It's the center. I mean, Friday Night Live really was a big factor in revitalizing our downtown. That's fair to say.
Mhm.
And so
I believe it's the same building. I don't know if it's separate. I thought
I
they
thought
were all
it,
connected.
yeah, I thought if it's not connected, it's like right next door for
It
sure.
is. Yeah. Mhm.
But it's very. I've bought gifts for there, like for my wife for her birthday or Mother's Day. It's some
Mhm.
cute, trinkets, and
Yeah.
I always try to shop downtown Waukesha,
Mhm.
even though my choices are limited versus when I hate going to malls. I will say the Corners is very well designed and has a lot of new urbanism elements in that downtowns like Waukesha could model after the. I mean, the street parking's good in Waukesha like it is at the Corners, but that ramp in the Corners is so well lit. I remember someone said it was like a tanning salon, and you have the entrance to Sendix walking in there, which is brilliant. And I know our ramp here in Waukesha is very well lit, but you said too the cameras are not working.
There are no cameras except the entrance and the exit.
Interesting.
And I had made a complaint about that, and the question or the answer was, well, we'll have to have a meeting about that, and it was a matter of the cost of cameras.
Sure.
And I had made a comment that, oh, the cost? Well, I'll pay for them. And then there was pure silence after I had suggested
So
that.
when Alderman Piper was on the show last week, he had mentioned that they are working on the new plan, and maybe that's something that. Do you think that would be a fair point to bring up, Alicia, to see where we could find funding for something like that? Because I know that people's perceptions, especially women's perceptions, are the reality, and a lot of women don't like parking in ramps because of that safety issue, that stigma that ramps are known for, and the lighting is important, but I think also having cameras, if they're cost effective.
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely something, improvements on both ramps. So the one that's right here across the street, as well as the one at the transit center. It's a high priority to make sure that those are safe and that we're doing what we can. Obviously, there are all kinds of budget constraints. I know that Joe Piper could probably talk at more length than I could. But yeah, we're always trying to find that balance of making sure that we're providing the best possible service to the community while also maintaining a balanced budget. And not to completely go off the rails here with a different subject, but a lot of that comes back to things like shared revenue and levy limits that are really holding us back. And it's not something that has to do with the city, but actually the state legislature.
Mm.
So it all kind of comes full circle, and really being aware of who you're voting for and what they stand for, and whether they're not they're actually standing up for the community, and making sure that they're doing a good job. But it is a conversation that I have been having, and I know that it's a top priority to make sure that we are making those improvements so that people will feel like they should use the ramps and can use the ramps in a safe way.
Great,
Uh,
thanks. Go ahead, Stephanie.
okay, I know this sounds self-centered, but when my van was stolen, that was December, and I got my van back, and
Stay in the
the
mic. Sorry.
and a detective actually told me that my van was safer parking on the side of my building where it was stolen than parking in the ramp. That was in December. And I had parked my van in the ramp. I turned around and there was a car with flat tires, all four.
Mm,
And I thought, well, okay, there's no way to find out who did that because there's no cameras. That was in December.
okay.
And I just thought, what, why aren't there cameras? I just thought, okay, if there's cameras at the beginning of the building and the end, the exit, what's the point in that? They need to be on each floor. And I mean, maybe all the businesses should kick in and pay for them. I mean, I would kick in. I would voluntarily kick in.
Sure.
But we need
it'd
cameras.
be worth seeing a cost analysis and what it would cost
Yes.
each business owner
Uh-huh.
and the value, especially if we have that new hotel and the steakhouse coming in.
Yeah.
They're going to need parking.
Right.
So-
They will
and
have
safe
parking,
parking.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was part of the
Oh,
arrangement.
with the ramp,
Mhm.
right?
Yep,
Okay,
they
great.
will have parking spaces. in
That's
there.
great news. So, hey, I want to cut real quick to the Carroll Minute, and I want to acknowledge Emily Wisner, a member of the 23-24 Carroll University women's basketball team that took the world by fire, winning the CCIW conference and the conference tournament. Congratulations to them. They were our first seed in the NCAA tournament, and Emily was recently recognized by the NCAA with an award, acknowledging her with having the highest three-point percentage in NCAA Division III women's basketball. That's a huge accomplishment. Congrats, Emily, on this accomplishment. And you owe it to yourselves. I know there's a growing interest in women's basketball, and I celebrate that. I do enjoy. I like the WNBA now better than the NBA. I tried watching one of the finals, and I had to turn it off after 5 minutes. It's such a selfish brand of basketball, but the women's game to me still has a lot of that geometry, those design plays, and that's what I enjoy most. And so you want to see some great local college basketball, be sure to check out Coach Lindsey Schultz's Pioneers women's basketball team. They've got a lot of great players coming back for the 24-25 campaign, and they're right here in town. The field house they play at is easily the hardest field house to play at for women's basketball. They have a high winning percentage. I think they've only lost like 3 or 4 games in the last like 4 or 5 years. So, but the conversation continues. I want to thank Alder Alicia Halbin-Slavin, who has to go canvassizing this morning. And the sun's come out, so it's great that to be able to ring doors and have the sun shining on you. And so much more of Stephanie Olson of Alterations Unlimited. And James Centel has just entered the office of former Alderman Don Browne. So much more going on here on This Week in Waukesha. You're listening to This Week in Waukesha on WAUK 540 AM, 101.1 FM. That's right, This Week in Waukesha. And I'm your host, Don Browne, coming to you live and local from the office of former Alderman Don Paul Browne here in the WAUK studios. I've got Mighty Max on the studio, on the board, excuse me. We're all in the studio. And we've also been graced with the visit from one of our closest legal advisors, James Santel, here in the office of former Alderman Don Paul Browne. And he has graced us again with these delicious pastries, bakery as we like to call it in the Milwaukee area, from Glorioso's on Brady Street. And can't thank Jim enough for all that he does for civic media and for WAUK and our beloved city, Waukesha. And my guest is, again, it's Stephanie Olson, who survived a brutal assault in February of 2023 and played a big role in helping apprehend the assailant within 24 hours of the attack. And then just recently, last week, bringing ultimate justice, a 50-year sentence with the likelihood that he may never get out of prison alive with that kind of sentence. And so and she is a champion now for victims' rights and has offered herself up to help any victims. And real quick, in the Carroll Minute, I'd mentioned Emily Wisner for being recognized for having the highest three-point shooting percentage in Division III nationally. And my predecessor on the city council, who does some work for Carroll University, Terry Theme, also a county supervisor, sent a really nice text. He said, "I'm glad you brought that up about Carroll, Don. They are such a wonderful group of young ladies." And I could not agree more. Coach Lindsay Schultz and her team, a lot of character, and it was really fun watching them. And I got to broadcast a few of the games, including a major upset over a number 9 team in the country. It was one of their Milliken, who was ranked number 9th in the country at the time, and it was a really exciting game. So thank you for that, Terry. And we were talking about the ramps and the safety of them. And Alicia had sent offline that she is working with Jeff Fortin from planning about improving the safety of the parking garage, the ramps, if you will, and maybe bringing in some cameras, hopefully. And Mary Jane, who had called earlier, Mary Jane Sanchez also texted, because she uses that ramp a lot. If you're talking about the Waukesha south, she means like south of downtown parking ramp, the elevator has not been working for at least 3 to 4 months. She had called that in, that there was smoke coming from that elevator, and it hasn't worked since. So we appreciate you sharing that, and we'll make sure that Alicia knows that and other people in the city. So, and it's really how a great city works is if we've got active residents, call in, and you'll find a pretty proactive city in many cases. And speaking of proactive, Jane Matnier has been extremely patient from the Waukesha Farmers Market with an update. And the sun has come out and smiling on Jane and our WAK booth there. Jane, what's going on?
As you said, Don, the sun has come out. It is going to be a beautiful, beautiful day down here at the Waukesha Farmers Market. You got to stop by and say hello. We are here until noon today. And I'm telling you what, Don, this is one-stop shopping here at the Waukesha Farmers Market. There's a booth that is selling grass-fed beef.
Ooh.
Every vegetable you can possibly imagine, from little potatoes to mushrooms to the most gorgeous onions I've ever seen, fresh garlic, there's honey. Of course, there's all kinds of bakery down here. Wonderful, wonderful food if you're looking for a snack. I personally am going to check out the empanadas at the Venezuelan food truck because those look pretty tasty. Like I said, bakery, fresh flowers. You can get your knives sharpened. You can get treats for your dog. You can get just about anything you need for a fabulous dinner tonight right down here at the Waukesha Farmers Market. If you stop down, make sure you stop by the Civic Media booth. David and I are there. You can register to win this really, really nice bicycle, pick up some stickers, stop by, say hello. We would love to meet you. We will be here until noon today, and I hope to see you before then. This is Jane Matnier for WAUK coming to you across the Civic Media Radio Network. Thanks, Don.
Hey, thanks so much, Jane. And it's a pity. I wouldn't believe that any member of the WAUK team would be eligible for that bicycle because that sounds like a real winner, and I'm in the market for a new bike. So I do encourage everybody to stop by and say hi to Jane and put your name in for that bicycle. And be sure to catch Jane Monday through Friday, 10 to 12, Matt and Air on air. And Jane is joined by Greg Bach, one of our producer extraordinaires. Greg's got a full morning because he produces Up North News with Pat Kreitlow here out of WAUK, and Pat's up there, and I believe in Eau Claire. And then he joins Jane a couple hours later after Earl Ingram's show. And those two have a lot of fun together, and I highly encourage you to listen to that. And download the Civic Media app so you don't have to be rolling the dials around, so you can catch all the great Civic Media programming anywhere you go. So, and I mentioned we have Jane gives us the farmers market report and other people that run our booth, every week. But we do have an authentic farmer or crop report on Civic Media, and it's I think it's like 5 a.m. Pam Yankee with I forget the name of the organization out of Madison. It's like a farmers bureau, but she has a life of experience entrenched. Grew up in a farm family, and it's fun to listen to, and you learn a lot about how agriculture is still a driving force for our economy, and especially Wisconsin agriculture. And it's worthwhile checking it out. And I'm going to have Pam call in one of these Saturdays and educate us a little more on that. So grateful for everything going on here. So we were continuing the conversation with Stephanie. We were talking about parking ramps, but I think you wanted to switch gears aside. There was about an article that you'd read recently about downtown Waukesha and some of the misperceptions of safety, or I think it was regarding the homeless, maybe.
Right. Well, several months ago, there was an article saying, and it was about that the crime downtown was attributed to the homeless and the mentally ill, and I have to disagree with that. The problem are the little thugs that are let out of jail and they're dumped off downtown with their backpacks with little switchblades in them. They're just out of jail and they just are dumped off downtown. And in 40 years, I have never had a mentally ill person or a homeless person come in my shop and ask me for anything. And I swear that that's never happened. But I've had somebody like this guy that came in my shop, asked me for money and asked me to use my phone, but never, ever. So that is a misconception that happens. And I've never, after dark, there are homeless people downtown, but they're looking for cover. They're not out harassing people. They're not asking for anything. And I really was offended by that, that this person that said that gives a conception that there's such a problem like that. I disagreed with that.
Okay.
That's not the problem.
Well, and again, being a downtown business owner, especially since you're kind of off the beaten path a little bit, where you think homeless people are would venture towards, that you haven't experienced that.
Mhm. And this is
Anything like
on the side streets.
Right. That's, I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're not right on Main Street.
And this person that said this in the paper, I don't think they even walk on Main Street, much less the side streets. So maybe if they walked around more, they would see that that's not the problem. And after dark, then you would see what's going on, on the side streets. And I wouldn't go out after dark on the side streets. So I just don't think that's what the problem is.
Sure. Yeah, and I lived in Waukesha over 12 years, and before I lived here, or even when we first moved here, downtown never seemed safe to me at night. Main Street, yes, but some of those side streets, absolutely not. But in the way that downtown is developed economically and otherwise in recent years, that I do feel much safer being down here. And my wife come down here frequently to have dinner when we don't have anything going on with all the sports and the other activities our kids have going on. It's we don't get downtown as much as we'd like. And Mary Jane Sanchez just texted in. She said, your statement, Stephanie's statement, is true. Many of the thugs arrive by bus. And so they're getting out of county just up the road, right? The county courthouse where those,
Yes.
yeah. And they're just coming to downtown. That seems peculiar to me that they wouldn't be going back to, right? Unless they live in Waukesha or came from here, that they'd end up here instead of going back to wherever it was they were apprehended by the police.
Yes, I don't know what the answer is to that, but
Sure. But that'd be interesting. It'd be great to talk to somebody maybe from the county sheriffs and see what their process is for when they release people from, because it's just a holding center. There's not like a full, like there's not people in that complex that are doing 2 or 3 year stretches. It's just people that are, while they're facing trial, or
Mhm. Well, this guy went to a high school here in Waukesha.
the guy that attacked you. Oh, he was a
Yes.
graduate of one of our
Yes.
high school. Okay.
And everybody thought he was, oh, this poor kid from Milwaukee, and
Yeah.
here he went to school out here. So I don't know if
And
he had relatives here.
turns out he graduated from Waukesha West, and his dad's a cardiologist. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Had to get my dig in on West.
Yeah.
But it is also heartbreaking that you're dealing with someone that was born and raised here, that is one of our own, if you should say. I mean, I guess we're all brothers and sisters wherever we live, but here in Waukesha, that's got to hurt too. That because we value our schools, we value our neighborhoods and our communities, and so that makes it even sadder to me in so many ways.
Mhm.
So, especially again, since it was a random attack, it's like my impression was that the young man came from Milwaukee,
Mhm.
where, growing up in a big city like that and maybe in a tougher neighborhood, he felt really fearless being able to walk through downtown Waukesha and looking for the right spot and the right situation to strike,
Yeah, I don't know.
and then kind of learn the hard way that
Mm.
not that doesn't happen that easily here. So, terrific. So, what's in store for you? I mean, I think you made a statement about you plan on being open for another 40 years,
Oh yeah.
and I believe it. So that's you have a long way to go before retirement.
Well, the judge said Stephanie won't be around if you ever get out of prison, and I
Till you
kind of
sail it, yeah.
and I kind of motioned to the DA. You want to tell him that if he ever gets out, I'll be at the gate waiting for him. And the DA just kind of looked at me
With Johnny and some brass knuckles.
and he looked at me like I could tell in his eyes, like, Stephanie, go sit down and be quiet. But
There's that tenacious part on you, Steph.
Yeah. So Johnny Watermelon, he's taken over Alicia's spot here, and Johnny's a very dear friend of Stephanie's, and he's one who introduced me to Stephanie at the farmers market a couple of years ago. And you guys had a nice lunch together yesterday.
Yeah, we visited a little bit about what we were going to do today, and I just want to kind of maybe backtrack a little bit. Stephanie and I met a couple of years ago because she's a great seamstress and tailor, and I needed some work done, and a friendship broke out. Okay, and it's just been a great relationship. To hear what she went through was just horrific. So I'm here asking the community to help in the healing process, to befriend Stephanie and to embrace her courage, that she was so brave during this traumatic event, that she took down all the details, made this prosecution go by the numbers and put this guy away for the rest of his life. Okay. So she was calm under pressure. She did everything right. She was the victim here. Okay. This guy's gone now, but we still need to rally around Stephanie. So if you've got a piece of business in the Waukesha area, please come in and say hi to her, or drop off a bouquet of flowers or something, and rally around this woman. She has done such a great service for this community and will continue to do so. She's offering to be helpful to any other victims, as we all should. So that is my ask for
I love it,
Stephanie.
Johnny. Thank you. And the conversation continues with Stephanie Olson and Johnny Watermelon. Stephanie Olson of Alterations Unlimited, about the future in downtown Waukesha and so much more. And also, I want to report this real quick. How are we doing on time there, Maxie? About 30 seconds. Perfect. So the family of Waukesha Olympic athlete Gwen Jorgensen will address attendees at the Waukesha County Historical Society Museum during its next Lunch and Learn event on July 9th. And that begins at 11 a.m., and I encourage all of you to check that out. That sounds like a wonderful way to spend a day in July at our Historical Society. And so much more here on This Week in Waukesha.
stand up and be counted. Don't be ashamed to cry. You gotta be bad. You gotta be bold. You gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard. You gotta be tough. You gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool. You gotta be calm. You gotta stay together.
You're listening This Week in Waukesha with your host, Don Browne, coming to you live and local from the office of former Alderman Don Paul Browne. And very fitting song for our guest, Stephanie Olson. You Gotta Be by Desiree. Love that song. That's kind of one of my rally songs. And how should I say it? Yeah, I mean, you embody that song. That's kind of why I had Johnny here to give witness as a closer friend that this isn't an act you're putting on. You really are Teflon Steph.
Oh.
And you don't mess with Stephanie Olson.
Tenacious.
Yeah. And in addition to all those like pins and needles she has in her alteration shop, there's other ways she can. So don't mess. But no, on a serious note, though, we are grateful for your courageous stand against this unspeakable act, and grateful for the opportunity to celebrate what you did, rising above tragedy. And what other precautions are you taking now to be safe in your shop there? And what are some other recommendations you'd have for other business owners and residents in downtown Waukesha?
Well, like I said before, I don't know if I was careless or trusting, but in 40 years, I never locked my door at the business. I just always felt safe. And this guy, I said on Facebook that he probably didn't graduate from high school and probably can't spell his name, but he's an educator. No offense to teachers, but he taught me how to be suspicious and
Vigilant.
Yeah, and lock my door, watch my shoulder, over my shoulder, and just be more suspicious, careful. I guess I don't know if I'm just careless or trusting, but I lock my door now. I'm more aware of what's going on around me. And that's the main thing. You just have to be aware. You have to pay attention. Don't put yourself in a position where you could get attacked. And I never blamed myself. I never thought it was my fault, never felt guilty. And that's why I went to the police in the hospital immediately. And in my therapy, the therapist said, well, I don't want you to blame yourself. And I said, I never blamed myself. It was situational. Had I had the door locked, he couldn't have got in. Had I not had something, a rack of clothes in front of the window, somebody could have seen it. There were certain circumstances. It was a perfect storm, but I never, ever blamed myself. Never, it wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything to deserve that. So I didn't have any hesitation to go for help. That's what I'm trying to get through to people. You don't deserve it, no matter what, if you know the person or not. You have to go for help. You just have to. Otherwise, these people are going to keep running around and doing it over and over again.
Sure.
Okay. And, I didn't say this in court, but he told me he had done it before. And he said, I said, you've done this before? And he said, yeah, but I never got caught. And I said, well, you're going to this time. And he looked real puzzled. And I said, do you think I'm not going to go to the police? And he looked puzzled. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm going to.
Well, that was gutsy, too, because he's still there in the store. He could have potentially hurt you more, but at that point, you were pretty unfazed, or you were like,
well, by that time,
probably in shock.
We were face to face by then, and
Yeah.
I knew he couldn't overpower me then. He was
Okay.
a coward and waited till I turned my back.
Sure.
So I knew he couldn't do it then.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow. Had you ever been trained in any type of like self-defense?
Oh,
Martial
no.
art? Okay, but
No, and then his attorney asked me, well, did you scream? And I said, no, why would I do that when he threatened to kill me? And
Yeah.
what would be the point?
sure.
And then I continued to ask his attorney, I don't know, I'm not a gambler. Are you, sir? Would you gamble? Knowing that he just said he had something in his bag to kill me with.
You may have another career as a professional witness for these other, like. But what amazes me is that you're in obvious shock. pain, but you thought to make a record in your mind of all the things that the assailant was touching, including the doorknob when he left your shop, that after he closed the door behind him, you locked the bolt. You did not touch the doorknob so that the police could come in and capture evidence, which also made it a slam dunk in terms of the trial.
Right. And that's the other thing his lawyer said. So you took the time to write everything down and check out his clothing, and then you went to the hospital? And I just told him, I said, yes, I did, because
Yeah.
when we got to this day.
Is
I
there a
wanted to-
playbook for, when you get assaulted? I mean, what's the playbook? Tell me.
Well,
This is new for me.
Well, and I just said I wanted to write everything down and make sure I got everything straight. So when we got to this day, this guy would go to prison for the rest of his life. And then the attorney said,
no more questions. I love that. I would love to see a tape of that. I don't know if it was video. I'm sure it was captured on video of the trial, but I would love to see that, to see the expression on the lawyer's face and that response.
And then he said, I'm sorry, but somebody had to do it.
Yeah.
At the end.
Sure. Well, and you did it. We're thankful. In the 2 minutes we have remaining, Stephanie, anything else you want our listeners to know about you, this situation, and also your store, that we got to have you on again and talk about Alterations Unlimited and its many years of service here in Waukesha?
Well, I mean, beside what happened to me, I'm trying to get out there that if something like this happens, whether you know the person or not, you just have to go to the hospital, go to the police. It doesn't matter what order. I mean, the first thing I did was go to the hospital, and his attorney was saying, well, why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you call 911? I didn't know if he was out there or not. I didn't know what to expect out there. So I went to the hospital. I had my van parked in the ramp, fortunately. So he didn't know if I was in the building or not. But I went to the hospital. It didn't matter if you go to the police or.
Terrific. Stephanie Olson, Alterations Unlimited, thank you so much for your courage and for all that you do for our city.
Oh,
And on
thank you.
behalf of Waukesha people everywhere, thanks again for your courage. Join us next week. Kathleen Cummings is my guest. Next is Atticus, a law review with James Santel. Please enjoy this beautiful Saturday. I know I'll be at my son's graduation party. And remember, safety is everyone's responsibility. Go Ramila Mahagiv and see ya!